Hey, so yes, I lost over 100 pounds this last year, and I had one of you backstagers ask me a specific question. Hey, how did you do it? I want to hear your story. So this is exactly what the backstage account is for, is those personal things for those who want to get to know me better. So let's go ahead and get into how did I lose 100 pounds in the last year. Now, I want to say that when I give this story, that I want to say that this will not work for everyone. In fact, it hasn't worked for me in the past. How do I explain this? Okay. In my life, I'll just start that. In my life, I have been mostly heavy. I have been hundreds of pounds too heavy most of my life. And there has been times in the past where I think one time I lost 78 pounds and then I put it all back on and then some. One time I lost 60 something pounds and I put it all back on and then some. And this last time, which I'm hoping is the final time, I lost 100 pounds approximately. It fluctuates by a few pounds because I'm right at the 100-pound mark. But I don't plan on gaining it all back and then some. In fact, I really feel like this is it. I'm getting too old to screw around with this. And so part of what I'm going to tell you is the answer to when people always ask me, how did you lose the weight? I don't know that there's a magic bullet. There's been 3 times in my life where I got so sick and tired of my struggles, and I'll share some personal stuff. This is going to get really personal. I just decided. I was upwards of 325 pounds at one point, and I think there was be embarrassing moments of not being able to go to a restaurant, for example, and sit in a booth, or you have to take a flight somewhere and you have to worry about getting a seatbelt extender. Those were humiliating moments in my life. And so those kind of things were usually the part that spurred me into action. Like, that's it. I've been humiliated publicly. The only thing that's available is a booth. I can't fit in a booth. That's humiliating. I feel like everybody's making fun of me. And those humiliation moments spurred me into major weight loss in the past. One thing I can say, by the way, I'm not getting to the short answer, is nothing motivates like success. So once you start losing weight, it's always difficult at first. And if you get enough anger and hatred in yourself to get started, then once you get past that first month maybe of having to work hard because you're just angry, and you see real success, nothing motivates like success. And then you feel good about it and you start wanting to get more success. So that's my number one thing. But the actual formula that happened is, again, short answer first and then I'll give an explanation. Short answer is intermittent fasting and a low-carb, high-fat diet. Now, again, let me point out to you, that's not a recipe for everyone. So it's not that's how it would work for me. It worked for me because I was diabetic. I went to go see a nutritionist. Actually, what happened first, just to give you the long story, because this is a behind-the-scenes thing. For the first time in my life, I went to school. Boy, I'm a lot of side tangent. I went to school for psychology. And I went to college for psychology. I was going to be a therapist. I didn't end up finishing that degree. I did all my master's level courses in psychology, but I didn't get my degree. That's another story. But the point being is that I was going to be a therapist, and yet I've never gone to a therapist. For the first time in my life, I hit a real emotional low this last year or so and decided to see a therapist. I ended a relationship, a 30-year relationship that was unhealthy for me. I ended that relationship. I was in severe depression. I was questioning myself and whether that was the right choice. And so for the first time, I went to a therapist. That therapist and I got talking, and one of the things that came up repeatedly in our therapy session was that my weight is a huge problem with my self-confidence and my feeling about myself and self-esteem. And so she immediately kind of stopped the therapy and said, I think the first thing you need to do is see a nutritionist. A friend of mine who's a nutritionist and basically a psychoanalyst therapist who can deal with both the emotional issues along with your weight as well as your weight. And so that's what happened. I went to a therapist. I went to a nutritionist. The nutritionist resonated with me. He identified extremely quickly that I am carb dependent. that as a diabetic and the particular way that I eat, I'm carb dependent, meaning my body absolutely craves carbs, and that's causing all of my issues. And so he went for a radical approach and said, look, I want you to eat only 6 hours during the day. I want you to, eat from an eating window of like 10 a.m. to like 4 in the afternoon. Make it a 6 hour window of some kind, and basically only eat during that time. No snacks, nothing outside that window, and load up on fats and proteins and kill the carbs. And the science behind it was this, and again, this is not for everyone, and I'm not a nutritionist, all those disclaimers. The science behind it was this. Your body gets fuel from two different places. And you may know all this, but this is, somebody asked me my story, so I'm going to tell you my story. Your body gets fuel from two places. It gets it from carbs, or it gets it from fats, basically. And so you can be carb adapted, or you can be fat adapted. So what he said was, your body craves carbs, and so you need to get yourself in a reversed situation where your body craves fat for fuel, and burns your fat for fuel when it needs energy instead of going to carbs. And so what we did is we depleted my body of carbs, heavily depleted. I went to a pretty much keto diet with extremely low carbs every day, and upped the fat intake. And as he explained it to me, while traditional science is a lot of fat is bad for you, in this particular case, we wanted my body to know that fat is readily available in the bloodstream at all times, and that carbs are not. And so that, combined with the intermittent fasting, where my body is starved and needing to go to energy, and then when the energy it finds readily available all the time is fat, it started to burn my own fat. Understanding that science motivated me. I ended up doing exercise, and I ended up doing carb depleted exercise, which was, I'm going to go for a walk. Is how it started. Going for a walk, just a simple walk, nothing exciting, just a couple mile walk, to when I was in a carb depleted state, when I hadn't eaten carbs for a very long time because I'm intermittent fasting. And so when I'm in a carb depleted state and I increase my energy level, again, my body has to go someplace for fuel. And since there's not carbs in the bloodstream, where does it go? It goes to my fat. So I burned fat eventually very, very quickly. And I completely reversed diabetes. I went to my doctor, who my doctor, by the way, told me at first, this is not sustainable long term. However, my doctor was progressive enough, if you will, that he said, look, I'm not going to argue with your weight loss. Your weight loss is fantastic for your health and your body right now. And so I don't want to change what your nutritionist is telling you to do. Stick with it, because it's obviously working with you. With the caveat that I don't think it's sustainable long term, but I'm not going to bitch at what you're doing. Keep at it. So he endorsed me, if you will, to stay on a high fat, low carb diet and keep doing intermittent fasting. So over that year, with working with my nutritionist and my medical doctor, I dropped 100 pounds. I feel better than ever. I'm super energetic. I came off of drugs that were flattening my cognitive function. I was on a statin, for example. Statins, I found out, tend to make you feel dull and have memory issues. I was feeling super dumb that last year. As part of the reason why I went to a therapist. I'm like, I just don't understand. Like, I've got this job and I don't get it. Other people get things, I don't get it. I'm a smart guy. The one thing I've always prided on myself on is I've got a high IQ and I'm a smart guy. And I felt really dull this last year, and I was starting to worry about myself. I was like, what's happening? Why am I not getting simple shit? And other people seem to get it. And then when I was losing weight, what I did was my goal ultimately is to be on no medications. Now I realize the older I get, the less likely it's going to be that I'm ever going to be in a place where I'm off all medications. But my goal was to get off medications. I was on a whole bunch of medications. So what I did is I used a counseling therapy session method I developed of training ChatGPT to be my nutritionist, and I told it all of my conditions and all my medications and what I'm on, and I continued to ask the right questions to ChatGPT to say, okay, look, here's my blood sugar today, here's where it's been the last couple of weeks, I want to drop one of my medications, which one of the medications that I'm taking right now is most dangerous for side effects, and which one can I drop? At some point in that negotiation with ChatGPT as my nutritionist, along with my actual nutritionist, it reminded or told me that one of the first drugs it would drop is a statin, because statins tend to cause cognitive impairment, make you feel dull in some people, and it had a bunch of negatives. And they told me, and my nutritionist told me, the statin probably isn't necessary, and so I stopped taking it. That changed a lot for me. Within a couple weeks, maybe even sooner, it feels like. And again, maybe it's psychosomatic, maybe I psyched myself into it, but I can tell you, I felt so much sharper. I felt an immediate return to my cognitive abilities. I was starting to feel dull. I was starting to feel depressed. I was starting to feel very defeated, like maybe I was losing brain function. All of a sudden, all my brain function came back after a couple weeks, I think, of being off of a statin, and I felt sharp, very sharp as a tack. When I talked to my medical doctor about whether that's possible, he said it is possible, and a lot of people do report feeling dulled mentally on statins. So I told him, I said, look, it may be anecdotal, it may not be true, it may be psychosomatic, and I psyched myself into thinking it made a difference because I was told it was making a difference, but holy shit, I feel amazing mentally. And so he's like, yeah, stay off your statin. You don't need it. Your body's responded. I no longer have diabetes. My doctor's taken diabetes off my diagnosis. I literally, if you know anything about diabetic numbers, let me give you some examples. I was in the range of close to 300 blood sugar glucose levels in the morning, which is really bad. My wife's in that range now, and I'm trying to get her to fix things, but I don't want to pressure people. I'm not your food police or whatever. But anyways, I would have upwards of 300, I forgot what it was, milligrams per whatever liter or whatever. But the point being is, I had a 300 or so when I'd wake up in the morning. That is horrendous on your body, right? And you're supposed to be, when you're in a fasting state, meaning you slept and you wake up and you test yourself in the morning, you should be around 100 or even under 100. Those were numbers I didn't think were even possible. I've been on insulin before in my life and couldn't get down to under 100. Let me tell you that it is common today, for me to wake up with a blood sugar of 79 or 80 or somewhere in that range, well below 100. And I will do that whether I've had sugar during the day or not, and carbs, because I've started to add carbs back into the diet as we've now hit where my goal weight, where I feel comfortable. Technically, medical charts will tell you I need to lose probably another 60 pounds. I feel fantastic. This is where I thought I wanted to be when I started this journey. I was like, hey, if I can get to this weight, I'll feel good. I know I've been there before. It's where I feel happy. In fact, I start to feel a little bit of body dysmorphia if I lose more weight, because it doesn't feel like me. I've been heavy for so long that if I get too thin, I look at myself and I feel like I'm gaunt and I don't like the way I look because I have body dysmorphia. A lot of personal shit here. So thanks for asking and showing interest in me. So anyways, point being is that I'm at where I want to be now. My blood sugars are incredibly stable. I'm all the time in the morning under 100, and I didn't think that was even possible. I was told that my pancreas doesn't work properly and never will, and I would need to be on insulin the rest of my life. That doctor was effing wrong. The old school mentality used to be in the medical profession that diabetes is a degenerative disease that will always get worse and can only be treated with medicine, and you will have it the rest of your life. It has turned, apparently, and every doctor now that I've talked to recently has admitted we were wrong about that. Diabetes can be reversed, and I have, in fact, reversed diabetes. And now, even when I don't eat well, if I have a high carb day, I still wake up with a blood sugar under 100, because guess what? My pancreas is working correctly again. And it was just because I beat my pancreas back into functioning properly. I stopped abusing the piss out of it with enormous amounts of carbs. And again, now I'm slowly adding carbs back into the body. And it's funny because my wife has this little bit of panic in her, right? Oh my God, are you falling off the wagon? I saw you eat, a slice of pizza. Pizza's high carbs. You can't eat pizza. And I'm like, relax. I've got it, honey. I've got it. I'm not going back. I will not fall off this wagon. Because another thing that's a secret between you and me is I have low self-esteem, and I'm embarrassed about going on camera if I'm heavy. When I start putting on weight, I was doing TikTok, and I had a 19,000 member audience on TikTok doing stuff on spirituality years ago. And I started to get heavy again gaining weight, and I disappeared off of TikTok, and just I couldn't do it. I was ashamed of myself. I hate being fat. I hate feeling fat, and I was ashamed to go on camera. I didn't want people tuning in 3 months after not seeing me and seeing the before, what I looked like, and the now what I look like, and go, oh my God, what happened to that guy? He's gotten so fat. And that is hard for me to hear. People call me fat. And I'm fat now. I realize that. I'm fat now. But it's a huge emotion. I've got a lot of emotional baggage. Anyways, so the point being is that now that I'm being now that I'm getting more successful on YouTube and TikTok, that helps me, right? It helps me stay motivated. I don't want to ever go back to being fat and afraid and ashamed to go on camera. So hopefully that will stay a motivator, on top of the fact that I just feel so much better. I can move. I can do things. I hike miles every day, almost every day, and get out in nature. I feel fantastic. So again, but I didn't know that those benefits were there until nothing motivates like success comes in, right? So I put in a ton of work. It was super hard. I can't tell you how to get past the emotional crutch, all the work. The work sucks ass at first. That's all it is. You just have to remind yourself, this is going to suck, but I'm going to do it anyways. And it's going to suck for a while. As a one more aside before I get out on this huge long rant, I've never enjoyed exercise. I didn't think I'd ever get to the point where I would be in an exercise routine. I somehow forced myself by going for walks every night, something that wasn't going to strain me too much. And I had one difficult part of the walk. I would walk on mostly flat ground, but I live on a hill, and so I'd have to climb the hill coming home at the end of my walk. And it was that kind of like, okay, a walk's super easy, but that hill's going to kill me, and it's going to suck, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it regularly. Eventually, it took weeks, but eventually that hill became totally manageable. Like I wasn't completely out of breath at the top of the hill. And then I started getting on an exercise bike, and I started doing that every single night. And then I started taxing myself and getting sweaty during my bike rides. And I cannot believe what happened when one day, nearly a year into my regular routine of getting on exercises, bikes, and working, I had gone through a period where I didn't work out for about 4 days or 5 days because I went on vacation and there was no bikes available for me to exercise, and I was terrified that this was going to ruin my routine. I got back on the bike when I got home, and I felt like $1,000,000. I had missed exercise so much. My body missed exercise so much that I had the proverbial runner's high. Endorphins had kicked in, and I was on fire. I felt like $1,000,000. And it's funny. I thought I'd never get to the point where working out gave me a high, and that's what happened. I literally, I had an endorphin rush like you wouldn't believe, and felt like $1,000,000 because I could finally start exercising again. My body was craving it so much. So it can be done, but it's not easy, and it's not a magic bullet. Like I said, people ask me all the time, how did you do it? As if I'm going to suddenly be able to give them that jump start. I can't tell you the number of times. I cannot tell you the number of times I said to myself, that's it. I'm tired of being fat. I'm going to lose weight. And then I didn't do it. More times than not, I didn't do it. When I said, I'm done. I'm fed up. I had all the language. I would tell people, nope, I know this is it. I'm going to lose weight. I'm back on the thing. And then I would fail in the first week or two because it's so hard. And I can't explain what happens, what switch flipped in the brain to make it this time work. And again, my track record's not good. I've lost big amounts of weight multiple times in my life. My track record's not good. I'm reminding myself all the time that it would be easy to go right back to where I was because that's my track record. Even when I put in all this effort, my track record is oh, I've got this. I don't have to worry about calorie counting anymore, which I don't, but all those little things add up when you stop doing the things that got you there. Oh, well, I'm not going to, maybe I'll extend my eating window by another hour, or maybe I'll add a lot more carbs back into this part of my day. All those little mistakes add up. So when I make a mistake nowadays, and I told you that I'm adding some carbs back into my diet, it is very, very planned. I add carbs in a little at a time. If I have a high carb day, I go on the weaker side for a few days to get caught back up again. So I'm way more conscientious of what I'm doing with my eating. And so that's it. That's my story. I thought I'd take a minute because I thought it was cool that somebody asked me a personal question. I know your name. It just lift my head. BC Miss BC, I think it was, asked the question, I'd love to hear your story about how you did it. So there you go. That's the story. Thank you for asking and showing interest.